that they can do it. That's if there's an underlying point to the book, it's that you can do it.
You really need to meet Jonathon Lomurro, or better still, you need to buy his book. And if you think you might not be the kind of lawyer who will buy his book and actually read it, you still need to buy his book so you can give it to somebody who works with you and who will read it, because it is tremendously useful. It's not just about evidence presentation. It's about how the human mind processes information and what kinds of information make a lasting impact. Hey there, folks. If we have not yet had a chance to meet, I'm Chad Roberts with eDiscovery Co-Counsel. We're a law firm that helps plaintiffs' lawyers with electronic discovery in complex litigation, and it's all we do. We caught up with Jonathon at the most recent AAJ conference, and I think you'll benefit from our visit with him. Here's Jonathon.
My name is Jonathon Lomurro, Lomurro Law, a medical malpractice attorney. I give bad medicine a dose of the law. So I do plaintiff personal injury, which has been moved into medical malpractice. I focus on it because of things that happened in my life that transitioned, and I really love helping people. But when I got into it, it was fascinating, the limit of what they provided. So in medical malpractice, you get this 12,000 pages of unreadable records, and then that's the one your client gives you. Then you get a different version, completely different pages provided to you on your request, and then you get into litigation and you get a third set. So you have these three sets of records that say almost the same things. Exactly. And so then I was wondering, all right, what's behind the curtain? And then I'm a big visualization of workflow. How can you take a client? So I used to do criminal defense, and then I did general motor vehicle. And what people always think, when you woke up, where you go next, where'd you go next, where'd you go next? And they don't always think about that in the terms of the medical profession. So when did the doctor get up? When did they swipe into the garage? When did they get to the ER? Are they using RFID badges? When they get in, are they enters their scheduling calendar saying, I'm going to go with this person? And then I started to learn about the in-depth portions of EMR, obviously the audit trails, which are really just access logs and SQL database queries, which then nobody knew. So here I am, this side nerd, and found something that I thought everyone knew, and we weren't getting. And it turns out they didn't know. The hospitals didn't know. The hospital IT didn't know. And it has been built in since, so I read a lot of the federal statutes. I think you have to know them if you practice med mal in any state. You know, under the supremacy clause, yes. They're the overall running legal uniformity amongst all states. So if you can put in that as your backing, you'll get new discovery, you'll go everywhere. And so I've just made great friends through AJ, through writing, fantastic friends, talking about what exists, why we need it, and then, of course, how to present it in a way that you don't scare the jury. And so all those things have made me love what I do and help my clients. Well, think about how many things you're hooked up to when you get into the hospital. You've got the monitors, you've got somebody watching the medications, the ATM of the medication, usually the Pyxis, you've got the radiological film. So you've got data all over the place, and if you're just relying upon that one record printed from the EMR, because that's the way it's always been done, you're actually not trying it on the record. You're trying it on the absence of a record. Oh, wow. And we read these things thinking we've got it. It's funny you say that. You're on the defense side. I don't think anyone's being untoward or evil about it. I think it's we send a request and they don't know, then they give it to the in-house guy, they give it to risk management gets that down, and by the time it gets to IT, it's like the game of telephone. Right. The request is now just give them something. Right. And when it comes back, you then have to train them on what's available, because if they knew, we could resolve a lot of cases early. We can get to the right results. Sure, you're not wrong. This actually came, so I love this topic, so I love that you brought it up. Richard Meyer you read every publication he ever put out. Yeah. He's a genius, and it was multimedia learning and the combination of it. And that's sort of what the first couple chapters of the book are about, is that we need to study those opportunities. So how do you connect with a visualization in a way that you can hit everyone without going over their head and telling the point of what you want? So you're going back to Aristotle and the simplicity of it. And we always go and see people give a presentation or a slide and they overwhelm, and the brain doesn't have the cognitive load to take in massive amounts of information. So how you create is almost as vital as how you get the information, because what good is a visualization where they don't know the point? Not to bore you, but I do tell a story in there. Like when I was a kid, I was at Rutgers, and in Rutgers you could take a train to the city, and I always hop the train. And it was Wednesdays in the city for a nickel. If you were a student, you go to any museum. We're talking Modern Museum of Art, Science Museum, doesn't matter. And I came across a museum, the Whistler Museum. James Whistler is an artist, and at the time I was an art history minor. And so I went in, and I'm like, who is this guy? I don't know. And he has everything on the walls, charcoals, oils, pastels, but it didn't make any sense. No cohesiveness. You know Picasso, you could see it. You know Monet's, the water lilies. This guy had nothing. I couldn't figure it out. I spent like 3 hours there. I'm like, this is what am I wasting my time for? And security guard grabbed me in the third room. He's like, you look perplexed. I said, I am perplexed. This is like art for art's sake. Everything was technically beautiful. Every piece was nice, but there was no uniformity amongst. There's always a style, and he didn't have one. And he pointed me to the bottom right of the painting. And in the bottom right of this particular painting was a weird smudge, it looked like, and I didn't see it. And I looked closer, and he goes all the way up to it. He points to it. He goes, there, it's a butterfly. So why is there a butterfly in a painting of a building? It's like graffiti. He goes, every single piece of work in here has a unique butterfly. It's how he signs his paintings. So he showed me this thing, and then I walked to the next one. There's a butterfly. The next one, butterfly. I stopped looking at any of the paintings. I'm just looking for the butterflies. It was like a Where's Waldo, a Where's Whistler's butterfly. And that concept was fascinating, and I missed it. And they did the selective attention test out of Harvard with the gorilla, the basketball, and walks right into the middle. You don't see it. So these things that exist that are critical to your case or critical to the situation are missed, not because they're not there, but because the viewer doesn't understand that that's what's important about the image. So if you put up a board, you put up a page, you put up a record, what are they supposed to look at? And so our job is to digitally put that visualization in an easily accessible thing, limit the amount of words, powerful imaging, and the imaging and the words have to match. So whether you're speaking it at the same time as you're showing it or putting it on a page like you're talking to journalism, you still have to limit it in a way to bring out focus. You got it. And that way they can see it. So the reason for that is because you've had the case for 5 years. You see that butterfly because you know it's there.
You're in the weeds.
Yeah, you forget, which is why focus groups are good. Just go to somebody else, go to your kids. It doesn't matter who, and just be like, do you see this? And make it that simplicity. You're not wrong. It is something we need to remember. You should always be building your presentation from when the client walks in, because that multimedia data set is huge.
Don't put it off till the last minute. Just build it as you go.
Yeah, you'll fail otherwise.
Depositions and everything.
From day one, the intake. When I'm talking about the visualization, so it was funny. We were at that technology section you invited me to kindly, and it was talking about data mapping a client's history and where you're getting. But you data map a case. You think about everybody involved and what they did. You almost have a timeline per person that actively touched the case, and see everything that possibly could come by. Did they stop at Starbucks and use the gold card? You now know the date, time, exactly. They went to Gold's Gym, RFID over there. All those things can place them and understand what the full day did, because it's not just the record that's written, it's the record of life that's being recorded under the world we live in.
So do you have kind of a process? Do you have how do you do this in your practice? How do you do it?
I whiteboard it. I have a whiteboard, and it's huge. It is the size of a wall.
And what types of things go on the whiteboard?
Everything I could think of. So that's the key. So when you start, you try and so it's art. So it's a data map style, but just a drawing. Like, all right, so we're going to start with the client, and then you walk through with them. All right, who was with you? Where were they? Did you talk to anybody? Did you go there?
We're talking literally a
Oh, it's a giant wall with a marker, and I am drawing, and I have one color for my client, and then each person that comes thereafter gets a different color. And then you start to think, all right, so what did they do? What is happening? You go into the doctors, the nurses, the techs, and say, all right, where were they? Where they go next? And then are they external? So then you see if they went through portals. Are they accessing different things of that nature? And by the time you're done, it is a mural of possibilities, because you don't have to be right. In the beginning, you're dreaming up what may exist, and then you seek to get what may exist. And when you do get, you can start checking off those boxes, and then maybe you expand further to things you didn't know, and then you just keep going. And as long as you keep that, so tech nerd stuff. So Microsoft actually has a free app called Office Lens, and you can take a picture of a whiteboard and it will translate it into an OCRable image that goes right into OneNote per se, and you can just expand it to eternity. And so I have different versions of my walled whiteboard description throughout, so I don't forget anything. And so you could always get this. Basically, it's like printing out a writing. Now you could do it on a tablet or whatever, but the beauty of the wall is you can bring in other people, because everyone has a different view of life. Your associates, your attorneys, the person walking down the street, and they may think of something you couldn't dream of. And as long as you have an open mind, opportunity presents itself. Yeah. That's a different viewpoint, and it's a very big thing. And if you're open-minded, you'll find those things, and doing what you did is great. It's funny, the product, I am a big believer in getting that which was utilized to see. So I had a case where they left in tubing on a stent, and I went on and I found and purchased a couple, one to leave clean to use and then one to rip open and play with and learn. And you can sometimes develop now, all right, how is it done? How do you pull this off? Where's it go? How did this mistake happen? How did this error happen? And doing that is huge, and the jurors love it. And similar to what you're talking about, you got these people in the room, 12 brains are always better than one. They are. You just don't want them to go down a path that is completely irrelevant and miss the critical nature. So if you've got that information ahead of time, point them to it, anchor them to it. If you don't have it, they're going to go find it anyway.
Tell me about the book and how you conceived it, and where does a person find the time to write a book in the practice like you have? How did you do it?
So it's funny. So the book itself obviously is what I believe it should be the way of the future in practicing law. I was, Mark Mandel? He writes case framing and advanced case framing, good friends with Ben Rabinowitz. Fantastic trial lawyer. And I was at a seminar in Philadelphia, and I was like, all right, let me go see what he does. And he's talking about framing, all the things that I believe in. And as I'm sitting there, I was like, I could make this seminar better. And then I'm dreaming up everything here, and he's going through, and I'm like, so this is what I would do. And so I'm critiquing a god amongst litigators, and in my own head, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think this exists. I don't think anybody is taking the persuasive nature of presentations and then explain why we need to utilize the multimedia in the fashion that is available. So I walk outside, I literally walk outside, I go right to press, I scribble on a napkin, I go drop in the digital anchor, and I wrote, I think, like 3 other things down. They still got it. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I said, well, we all talk about anchoring, we all talk about this, but we need to, when the jury walks into Whistler's Museum, know what they're supposed to be looking for. Because they only have the case a day, an hour, a month. And so Herman Ebbinghaus is a German psychologist back in the day. He used to test on himself, and he would tell us that an hour after learning something, you've forgotten half of it. And then you go the next day, you're down to a quarter. At a week, you're down, to a fifth, and then a month, you're down to a sixth. And my cases can be months, 2 months. So I want them to remember the sixth of information that's important to the case, if that's all they're going to know. Because the defense goes last, and they'll remember half of what they said. So how can you present it in a way so that they can remember and make the long-term memory impactful? All of this is obviously a combination of storytelling, historical nature, blah, blah, blah. But when it gets to the last part, which is the part that I salivate over the possibilities, is to take it and think about graphic art design. Like, look, you're here, you've spent a quality amount of time setting up just this interview by yourself. Here, you've brought the right cameras, the lighting, the microphones. Like, if you start to look at that as how each slide or each item you're going to present matters. Are you going to be doing it live? The study of a live created image has a bigger connection to a jury. So if you're using annotations or multi-pivos, all of those things, there's a bigger connection. So you get to start dreaming about the presentation, and if you do it early, you can then take out the nerdy part. So I have a tendency to initially go way overboard. Okay, so my presentation I gave over at AAJ, I think I had 195 slides for 40 minutes. And people will be like, that's insane, you're supposed to do 5 minutes a slide, but they don't understand that it's not about the slide, it's about the way it looks. So the slides move, it looks like it follows, and it's not overwhelming. I wish I could just show you, because it's just, but the beauty of this is that you are imagining what you want to show and how to show it in a simplistic format, and break it down and break it down and break it down. When you've got it broken down, break it down again. And I sketch out on a pad or the whiteboard what it is that is critical in each of the slides, because if you can't do that and you can't get it across, then you just get rid of it and do it again, or just say it. You know, you don't need the data. And it was fun, and so that's I hadn't anything like it. So how do I find the time to do it? Was actually so I publish a lot of books. I do New Jersey medical malpractice law. We do every year we update it. New Jersey legal malpractice law, and I do litigation technology for the modern practitioner. But they're all Jersey central. So this is my first national book, and I had been approached to, after I gave it, they were like, "That's a great idea. Write the book." And most people then don't take the next step. And I had been working on it. How do you put a visual style into a writing? And that was the hardest part, was to take what's in your mind and put it on the page. And I wrote it in full. I was almost done. It was December, then the pandemic hit. Okay, and I threw the whole thing out. And I was just like, you know what? They stopped trials in Jersey. They stopped depositions of nurses and doctors. So now I am sitting here. What am I going to do? Let's write. And I started again, and it flowed. I woke up early. I worked 18-hour days, right, all the way through for months. I had some of my best friends around the country help me out reading it, and it became a really good reference point for me, and I put everything I wanted people to know in it, which is pretty cool.
Other than reading the book, what do you want people to know? What do you think people should know most and be aware of the most about the insights you've developed and the skills you've brought to this?
That they can do it. That's if there's an underlying point to the book, it's that you can do it. I tell a story in the introduction. My father had a secretary, Harriet. She was his everything. So I'm second generation, and she would have been the best attorney in the world if that was the time.
But for the grace of God, a lot of us, right?
Correct. And she retired, and she was about 86, 87. And she gave a call to my dad and said, "Hey, I bought a computer." And this was when I was real young. Bought a computer. Can your boy come over and set it up? And I set it up, and I'm just sitting there like, why is she doing this? She sits there and does crossword puzzles. What do you want a computer for? And I set it up for her, and she, by the time I got home, had sent an email to my mother thanking. Found it out herself. And it was clunky back then. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't anything else. It was as hard and complex as it is to do anything new for anyone. And she found a way to do it, which shows you how brilliant she is. But also the barrier of fear was taken down. So everything we do in life has a self-imposed fear. I didn't like medicine until I needed it. When you're a lawyer, you are an engineer, a mechanic, you're a presenter, an orator, a politician. And so you have to be open to new opportunities, and people can do it. So if you take the book and just say, even if you don't want to click the keys, if you know the keys can be clicked by somebody else, you can create greatness. And most of it's free. Most of it's just time and dedication to the craft and a study about what can make your case best. So that would be the best thing, is that it's everybody. This is not just for nerds, although I am one. It is for everyone, and that they can do it.
Jonathon, thanks so much for visiting with us today. And how can folks get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Sure. Obviously, email's fantastic. You go to my website or give me a call. The website is Lomurro Law, L-O-M as in Mary, U-R-R-O law.com.
I'll put it up when
Perfect.
we're talking this.
And then, of course, you can get the book and everything's in there. And I'm always up for chat.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank
Come
you.
again. Stay in touch.
You got it.